Surrender your will to routine, you don't just lose freedom. You lose the ability to ask why you're doing anything at all. We started calling it discipline, responsibility, even virtue. But Nietzsche saw it as something darker, a kind of quiet surrender, a decision, often unconscious, to trade the chaos of freedom for the comfort of structure. And that's when the workaholic was born. Not just someone who works hard, but someone who's fused their identity with their productivity. Someone who only feels worthy when they're busy. Someone who doesn't know who they are outside of their job. Sound familiar? Today, we don't work because we must. We work because we're told it gives us purpose, because being busy makes us feel important, because rest feels like guilt. And somewhere along the way, we stopped asking the most human question of all. Does this actually matter to me? Nietzsche believed that if you can't answer that question, you're already in trouble. You've already started drifting, letting the world shape your values instead of creating your own. He didn't hate work. He hated the way we stopped thinking about it, the way we handed over our lives to companies, titles, and tasks that feel hollow the moment we stop to breathe. To Nietzsche, that's not living. That's submission. So he offered something radical. Don't just question your job. Question the entire framework it exists in. Don't just seek better conditions. Ask whether the thing you're doing is yours to begin with. When work becomes obedience instead of intention, what you lose isn't just time. It's the thread of who you are. Nietzsche believed that not all morality is noble. In fact, much of what we call virtue, obedience, humility, self-sacrifice, might not be moral at all. At least, not in the way we think. He made a sharp distinction between what he called master morality and slave morality. Master morality values strength, power, independence. It's the morality of creators, the ones who define their own values, their own path. Slave morality, on the other hand, comes from resentment. It's what emerges when the powerless need to rationalize their position. It praises meekness, submission, obedience. Not because these are good in themselves, but because they're all the oppressed have. Now apply that to your job. Think about how often we hear this. Be a team player. Don't rock the boat. Work hard, keep your head down, and wait your turn. These ideas aren't just professional advice. They're moral expectations, and most of us follow them, not because they reflect our nature, but because they're rewarded. The obedient get praised. The quiet get promoted, the exhausted get respected. That's not a coincidence. That's slave morality in action. In today's workplace, virtue is often defined by compliance. We reward those who stay late without complaining, who never question the system, who suppress their instincts in favor of the mission statement. We call that professionalism. Nietzsche might have called it self-denial. When your value is measured by how well you follow, how deeply you suppress your own needs. That's not strength. That's submission. And yet, it's the norm. We're taught to believe that deferring to authority is maturity, that not standing out is wisdom, that working yourself to the edge of collapse is integrity. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Much of modern work culture runs on guilt. We feel guilty when we take breaks. Guilty when we say no. Guilty when we want more than what we're offered. And guilt is a tool, not for growth, but for control. Nietzsche saw guilt as one of the central tools of slave morality, a mechanism used to suppress instinct, ambition, and self-assertion. Because a person who feels guilty for wanting more is much easier to manage. So what happens when you internalize that? You start policing yourself. You apologize for setting boundaries. You hesitate to ask for what you want. You play small because being too much feels selfish or arrogant. And over time, you forget what you actually value. You don't act from conviction. You react from fear. That's how workplaces end up full of capable, intelligent people who are exhausted, disempowered, and unsure what they're even doing it all for. Nietzsche didn't believe this was inevitable, but he did believe it was dangerous. Because once you lose the will to define your own values, someone else will define them for you. In the workplace, that usually means aligning yourself with whatever the company rewards. And companies often reward conformity. Not originality, not courage, not truth. So, what would master morality look like in this context? It would mean working with intention, doing what aligns with your values, not just what earns applause, saying no without guilt, creating instead of complying, not waiting to be told what matters, but deciding that for yourself. Nietzsche wasn't against collaboration or discipline. He was against living a life that isn't yours. And if your job requires you to shrink, to deny your instincts, your values, your voice, then it might be time to ask, are you working or are you submitting? Because there's a big difference between effort and obedience. One builds you, the other erodes you. So next time you're praised for how well you fit in, ask yourself, is that praise or is it a warning? Nietzsche believed that at the core of every human being, beneath the habits, the guilt, the social rules, there's a driving force. Not survival, not pleasure, but something deeper. He called it the will to power. Now don't confuse that with domination or control. Nietzsche wasn't talking about ruling others. He meant the power to shape yourself, to grow, to overcome, to create meaning in a world that offers none by default. So ask yourself, does your job support that kind of growth? Does it challenge you to become more of who you are? Or does it ask you to be less? The modern workplace is obsessed with control. Every action tracked, every performance evaluated, every mistake recorded. But Nietzsche's will to power isn't about perfection. It's about becoming. It's messy. It's uncomfortable. It requires risk. Yet most jobs are designed to minimize risk. They don't want you to evolve. They want you to function. And when you live in that kind of system long enough, you start to forget that you have power at all. You settle. You say, this is just how it is. You stop reaching, and your will to power, the very force that makes you you, goes quiet. Nietzsche believed that was the greatest tragedy of all, not failure, but becoming numb to the possibility of transformation. He saw the will to power as the engine of self-overcoming. That internal push to turn pain into strength, frustration into clarity, limits into momentum. But here's the problem. Most jobs don't want you to overcome. They want you to comply. So instead of growth, you get routine. Instead of purpose, you get productivity. Instead of meaning, you get performance reviews. We confuse motion for progress, tasks for fulfillment, busyness for purpose. And slowly, we forget that we're capable of more than just coping. Nietzsche would ask, are you creating something through your work, something that reflects who you are? Or are you just surviving it? That's the difference. Surviving work means waiting for Friday. Creating through work means finding a way to express your values, your instincts, your perspective, even in small ways. It might mean changing careers, or starting a side project, or simply setting boundaries where none existed before. Because when the will to power is alive, it doesn't need permission. It doesn't wait for the perfect moment. It acts, it experiments, it builds, it asks, what can I do with what I have right now? And here's the twist. Nietzsche believed that even suffering could feed this power. Not because suffering is noble, but because it confronts you with yourself. It forces a response. You can either collapse under it or rise with it. So when you feel stuck in your job, unseen, unmotivated, boxed in, that's not the end. That's a signal. A sign that your will to power is still alive. That part of you still wants more, not in a greedy way, but in a human way. More meaning, more autonomy, more truth. And that hunger is sacred because it means you haven't fully given up. You still remember that you're not here to merely fulfill tasks. You're here to build something with your life, even if you don't know what it is yet. So if your workplace doesn't honor that drive, you owe it to yourself to find something that does. Because no job, no title, no salary is worth silencing the one part of you that still wants to grow. That's what Nietzsche meant by the will to power. Not the power to dominate, but the power to become. Work-life balance. It sounds like wisdom, a healthy compromise, a modern solution to an overworked world. But Nietzsche wouldn't buy it, because for him, The problem isn't the balance. It's the split. Work over here, life over there, as if the two are at war, as if one drains you and the other revives you, as if the best we can do is keep the damage contained. But Nietzsche wasn't interested in containment. He was interested in transformation. Work-life balance is damage control. It assumes your job will burn you out, so you'd better recover before Monday hits again. But what if the deeper issue isn't how much we work? It's how little of ourselves shows up in the work. Nietzsche wanted us to live whole, not fragmented, not divided. He believed in creating a life so meaningful, so intentional, that you wouldn't need to escape from it. The way we talk about balance today reveals something bleak. We don't enjoy our work. We endure it. We don't see our jobs as expressions of who we are. We see them as cages we decorate with ergonomic chairs and self-care routines. The tragedy isn't that we're busy, it's that we're busy doing things that feel empty. So the real question isn't, how do I balance work and life? It's, why is my work at odds with my life in the first place? Nietzsche believed in embracing life fully, and that means rejecting any system, any structure, that forces you to shrink in order to survive. The solution isn't always to quit your job or flee the system. Sometimes it's a mindset shift. Other times, it's a slow rebellion, small acts of reclaiming your time, your voice, your values. He believed you could bring intention into anything, even routine. Even labor, even work you didn't choose, at least for now. Because life isn't something that begins after your shift ends. It's in how you show up, what you refuse, what you create, even when no one's watching. So maybe the real balance we need is between who we are and what we've agreed to become, between the fire inside us and the roles we're told to play. And when those things are out of sync, no time off can fix it. Nietzsche challenges us to stop living in compartments, to stop thinking of work as the opposite of life, to blur the line intentionally, until our work becomes part of our expression, not our escape. Because a meaningful life isn't built in the hours after work, it's built through the work. Or it's not built at all. So maybe it's not about balance. Maybe it's about alignment, not how many hours you work, but whether those hours reflect who you really are. Imagine this. You're told that everything in your life, every conversation, every habit, every hour at work, will repeat. Not once, not twice, but forever. Over and over, exactly as it happened. No edits, no fast forward, no escape. That's Nietzsche's idea of eternal recurrence, a thought experiment, but not just to shock you, to wake you up. Because if the life you're living right now had to be repeated for eternity, would that feel like a blessing or a punishment? It's not a metaphysical claim, it's a test, a mirror, and in that mirror, many of us might not like what we see. Nietzsche believed that most people live reactively. They obey rules, follow scripts, endure jobs they hate, stay in routines they never chose, and they justify it all with hope. It's just for now. It'll pay off later. One day, I'll be free. But eternal recurrence shatters that illusion. It removes the idea of later. There is no escape, no retirement, no next phase, only repetition. Forever. So what if one day never comes? That's the challenge Nietzsche throws at you. Could you affirm your life as it is, right now, without needing to change a single thing? If your answer is no, if the thought of reliving your work week endlessly makes your chest tighten, then something's off. And that's the point. The idea isn't to panic, it's to reflect, to ask, what needs to change for this life to feel worth repeating? That's where the power is. Because this isn't a test you pass by perfection. You pass it by honesty, by aligning your days with your values, by stripping away what doesn't belong, by moving even 1 inch closer to a life you'd willingly live again. It might be quitting a job that drains you. It might be setting a boundary that scares you. It might be starting something that feels pointless, until it doesn't. Whatever it is, Nietzsche's test forces a brutal clarity. If you wouldn't choose it once, why are you living it now? You can't fake your way through eternal recurrence. You can't wait it out. You have to face it, And through that, maybe for the first time, you start to truly live. It's not about control, it's about ownership. You may not choose everything that happens to you, but you can choose how much of yourself you give to it. You can choose whether you live by fear or by intention. That's the heart of it. To live as if each moment matters. Not because someone told you it should, but because you decided it does. So take a look at your routines, your career, your days. Would you do them again, and again, and again? If the answer is no, let that discomfort guide you, because discomfort is where the truth starts. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You can only decide what to do next. So what does Nietzsche leave us with? Not comfort, not answers. Not a 5-step plan to quit your job and find your bliss. He leaves us with something much harder. A mirror, a challenge, a wake-up call. Because for Nietzsche, the real danger isn't failure. It's unconsciousness. It's living a life shaped by fear, by habit, by other people's expectations, and never questioning why. He looked at the modern world and saw a quiet crisis, not just of work, but of meaning. He saw people chasing goals they didn't set, praising values they didn't choose, working jobs they didn't believe in because they were too afraid to stop and ask what they really wanted. And to him, that was the ultimate tragedy. Not pain, not struggle, but comfort without purpose, routine without reflection. What we call normal, Nietzsche might have called surrender. And maybe he was right. Because today, we see burnout as a badge of honor, exhaustion as proof of commitment, busyness as a substitute for meaning. We fill our calendars and silence our instincts. We tell ourselves we're building a life. But most of the time, we're just following instructions. Nietzsche's legacy isn't about walking away from society. It's about waking up inside it. Asking, whose values am I living by? Whose story am I stuck in? What would my life look like if I wrote it myself? He believed that meaning doesn't come from the outside. It's not found in job titles, paychecks, or praise. It's created through struggle, through self-honesty, through the courage to break away from the herd. That's where the Übermensch comes in. Not a superhero, not a ruler, but a human being who refuses to live by inherited values. Someone who builds their own. Not to rebel for the sake of rebellion, but to live with intention, with clarity, with depth. So what does that mean for you? It means the real work isn't just in what you do from 9 to 5. It's in asking whether the life you're building is truly yours. It's in being brave enough to reject what doesn't fit, and bold enough to create what does, even if no one else understands it yet. Nietzsche doesn't give easy answers, because there aren't any. But he does give you the right questions. The kind that cut through the noise. Are you becoming who you are? Or just surviving another week? Are you living in alignment with your instincts? Or bearing them under deadlines and expectations? Are you choosing your path? Or walking one that was handed to you? The truth is, most people won't ask those questions. They'll stay in the loop. They'll play it safe. But if something in you is still awake, still restless, still hungry for something real, that part of you is worth listening to. Because that's where it begins. Not with quitting your job tomorrow, not with some dramatic reinvention, but with a quiet refusal to keep living on autopilot. That's Nietzsche's legacy. Not comfort, but fire. Not answers, but freedom. If you felt something while watching this, a sting of recognition, a moment of discomfort, a quiet, yeah, that's me. Don't brush it off. That discomfort is insight. It's the part of you that isn't fully asleep. It's the part Nietzsche was speaking to. The part that still questions, still resists, still wants something real. Because this isn't just about philosophy, it's about your life. How you spend your days, what you tolerate, what you postpone, and whether you're living in alignment with who you actually are. Most people won't ask these questions. They'll keep showing up to jobs they resent, saying yes when they mean no, living for weekends, waiting for retirement, calling it normal. But Nietzsche would say, that's not living, that's avoiding. So if this series did anything, if it cracked the surface even a little, sit with that. Think about what you're doing out of habit, what you're avoiding out of fear. What part of you is quietly dying in the name of being productive? Then ask yourself the real question. What would it mean to live on your own terms? Not recklessly, not selfishly, but truthfully, deliberately, powerfully. And if you're ready to explore that, really explore it, stick around, subscribe, join the conversation in the comments. Share this with someone you know is quietly asking the same questions. Because the truth is, you're not alone. There's a quiet rebellion already happening. People choosing meaning over momentum, depth over distraction, reality over routine. Nietzsche didn't give us easy answers. He gave us a mirror. And if you're brave enough to look into it, what you'll find might just change everything.